This video will assist you with your Access Lab, Creating Objects for the Garden Naturally database. Let's get started. According to the assignment, you will need two lab files. These are called data files. Lab 1, Garden Naturally, and Lab 1-1, Customer, which is an Excel file. Find these files in your Blackboard site. Once you locate the files, right-click on the file and Save Link As or Save Target As, depending on which browser you're located in. I'm going to choose Save Link As. I'm in Firefox. I'm going to choose to save mine to the desktop and click Save. You'll need to do the same thing to your customer Excel file. Save Link As, choose your file location, and I've already saved mine, so I'm going to hit Cancel. Now, I don't know if you've ever used this button before, but to the direct right of your date and time, on the very bottom right of your computer screen, there's a little box, which is actually your desktop button. If I click there, I can double check and make sure that I have actually downloaded both of these files. Lab 1-1, Garden Naturally, which is my Access database, and Lab 1-1, which is my customer Excel file. I have both of the files I need so that I can go ahead and start my assignment. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to open my book to Access page 60, AC60, and start Lab 1, Creating Objects for the Garden Naturally database. If I look at Step 1, it asks me to run Access, open Lab 1, Garden Naturally. I'll go back to my desktop, click on Lab 1, Garden Naturally, open this database. Okay, let's see here. Let me download this again. Maybe I created an issue when I downloaded it. We will download it one more time. Right-click, Save Link As, choose my desktop, and save. Let me go back to this file and open this file. When I open the file, it should automatically open it and ask me to enable the content. There we go. This is exactly what it should look like. I'm going to choose to enable that content, which is exactly what step number 1 says. Run Access, open the Lab 1 Garden Naturally database from the data files, and enable the content. So we are ready to go. Step number 2 says to open the sales rep table in the datasheet view. If I look on the left-hand side, I have my sales rep table. If I double-click it, I have just opened it in the datasheet view. It asked me to add the salary year-to-date field to the end of the table. Here's the end of my table. It's going to ask me to add this field as currency data type. If I select the down arrow, I can choose currency, and now I can type in there salary YTD, which stands for year-to-date. I have just completed that task. I have just added salary year-to-date to the end of the field and added it as a currency data type. Now it's going to ask me to assign the caption SR number sign to the sales rep number field. My sales rep number field is at the very beginning of my table. If I select it, I can go to the top tabs. Under my table tools, I have 2 tabs, Fields and Table. If I go to the Fields tab, I have a Name and Caption button. In that Name and Caption button, I can select captions and I can type in there SR number sign, and I have just assigned my sales rep number with a caption. The next step, step number 3, asks me to add the records shown in the table. I'll click into my table and I can start adding. You'll want to make sure you add each record independently, and you'll want to add them by typing in the data and hitting tab in between. Now, I'm not going to add all of these records in here. You can add the records in. There are a total of 4 records for you to add according to the directions. I am not going to waste your time by adding data in. You can add the data in yourself. Remember, these videos are just a tool to assist you with the steps if you need a little bit of help. All right, so step number 3 asks you to add the records shown. You can do that on your own. Let's move on to step number 4. Step number 4 asks us to resize the columns to best fit the data. In order to do that, I'm going to need to select my table, and I'll get my double-headed arrow in between my columns and double-click. It's just like an auto-fit when you're in Excel. Now that I have completed that step, it's going to ask me to save the changes of the layout to the table. I can do that in two different ways. If I close out of my table here, which I'm going to ask you to do in a minute, it will ask me to save the changes to my table. Or I can come up here to my Quick Access toolbar and hit the Save button, which will save my table. I'm going to do that, but I also am going to come over here to this little X right here and close my sales rep table. So when you get to step number 4, this is what it should look like, although you should have 4 records added into your table. Okay, let's close back out of this little table here. The next step is going to be step number 5, where it asks us to import a customer workbook, which is your Excel file. I'm going to go to my desktop and double check. I absolutely do have that file ready to go. So I'll go back to my Access database. It's going to ask me to add this data. That is external data. I'll go to my external data tab. I'm going to add a new source from a file, and that would be an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to click on Browse and find the location of my data. My data, I have it saved to my desktop. It is my lab 1-1 customer.xlx file, and I will say I'd like to open that. According to the directions, it tells me to import the source data into a new table in the current database. That means over here on the left, I have a sales rep table, and in a minute, I'm going to add something called a customer table. So I will have 2 tables in just a minute. I'm going to say, okay, that is what I want. I'm going to click Next in my wizard. I do have first row that contains column headings. How do I know that? If I read step 5, it specifically tells me the first row of the workbook contains the column headings. There we go. After that, it says the customer number is the primary key. As I make my way through the wizard. And how do I know if I'm using this wizard properly? If you went through the module for the Access module, you will know how to use this properly. All right. So here I'm going to tell it I'd like to choose my own primary key. I'd like for it to be my customer number. At the end, it asks me what I would like to call this table. According to the directions, it says assign the name customer to the table. I will assign the name customer to the table and click Finish. In step number 5 of your assignment, it also says save the import steps. Okay, I will click here to say save the import steps. Assign the name import dash customer import dash customer space workbook to the steps. Assign import customer workbook as the description. Okay, save the import. I just created a customer table. On the left, I now have a customer table. Earlier, we had a sales rep table. Remember that? I'm going to close out of my sales rep table. Now I'm going to double click on the customer table, which is the one I just added. That was an Excel spreadsheet. I took the Excel spreadsheet and imported it, and now that is currently a table, and I didn't have to type the data in. Let's look at step number 6. Step number 6 says open the customer table. Well, I just did that. I'm going to close it to make sure you know how to do that. Open the customer table. Once the customer table is opened, then it says, wait, open the customer table in Design View and make the following changes. Well, that's different. Earlier, when we made changes to the sales rep table, we did it from here. This one is different. They're going to ask us to do something different. In the customer table, they say, open the customer table in the Design View. If I'm on my Home tab, on the far left, there's a View button. If I select that view, it gives me Data Sheet View or Design View? Step number 6 specifically says, open the customer table in Design View. Okay, Design View. Now this looks a little bit different. All of a sudden, I've got a vertical listing of my fields. It's no longer going across my screen. Customer number, customer name, address, and this little key here is identifying that the customer number is my primary key, which is what we told it when we did the import from Excel. 6A says to change the field size for customer number. Here's my customer number. Once it's selected, I can drop to the bottom. I see that it says field size down there. The instructions ask me to change that to 4. Then it says change the field size for the customer name field to 30. Here's my customer name. Field size is 255. That's the default. It asked me to change that to 30. Step 6A will give you additional steps asking you to change other items, other fields. Change the field size for the address to 25. Change the field size for the state to 2. It will ask you to continue changing field sizes. Now that you understand how to do that, you can select each one independently. Select the address, come down to the bottom, address the field size. Select the city, come down to the bottom, address the field size. Select the state. State usually is 2 identifiers, right? 2 characters. We live in North Carolina, NC. So it's telling you for state that would be 2. So you will follow the directions on 6A to change the field size for all of these items. You will follow the directions for that. Step 6B says add the caption to the customer number field. I can come back up here and click on customer number. You see, every time I click on an item at the top, it releases the general information at the bottom. Remember earlier, customer number, we made that field size 4. Now here, customer number, it's going to ask me to add a caption. If I look right here, it's got a caption area. Now, could I have done this in the data sheet view? Yes, we did that earlier on the sales rep. So they're showing you 2 different ways to create and modify with your tables. Okay, so I would type CU with my number sign. Okay, then it's going to say in 6C, add the caption SR number sign to the sales rep number field, and I will let you do that on your own. Remember here, you'd have to select your sales rep number and go down to the caption and do that on your own. Okay, step number 7 says, save the changes to the customer table. If I simply close out of this table, it will ask me if I'd like to save the changes. Yes. Okay. I could also, it's going to tell me that if I didn't save it, my data would be lost. Okay. I could have also come up to my quick access toolbar and saved it there. All right. Once you do that, it may also say some data may be lost. The reason why it will say that is because you already had data within your table and now you're making modifications to your table. So that is a default that will come up and you're just going to click yes. Step number 8, ask you to open the customer table in the datasheet view. Here's my customer table. It's going to ask me to open it in the datasheet view. It's going to ask me to resize all of my columns to best fit it, and you've already done that. Remember, select your whole table, and then you already know the answer to this. Get your double-headed arrow. I'm going to allow you to do that because you've already done it before in the sales rep table. Then it's going to ask you to save the changes to the layout. So you'll come up and click the Save on your Quick Access toolbar. Step number 9 goes into a query. So this is where I'm going to come back in and help you some more. Step number 9 asks you to create a query using the simple query wizard. Let's get started. We're going to go to the Create tab if you still have something open in this area. It would make more sense for you to close out of it by going here. Don't go to the top and close out of your Access database. The little X here and close out of it, okay? In a little while, this area over here is going to have more things that are going to pile up that we're going to complete. We're going to complete a form, a query, and a report before this is complete. All right, the next thing for us to do, we're going to go on with step number 9. Create a query using the Simple Query Wizard. We'll go to the Create tab. Under the Create tab, under the Queries grouping, we're going to see the Query Wizard. We're going to use the Simple Query Wizard because that's what the instructions ask us to do. Create a query using a Simple Query Wizard for the customer table. If you don't have customer selected here, choose the down arrow and make sure customer is selected. In here, we're going to use customer number, customer name. So we're going to move these items over. Customer number, customer name, amount paid, balance due, sales rep number, and we are going to next our way through this wizard. It asks us to save this as customer query. It's defaulted to that. We will finish this. This is the query. Look on your left and it says we've got a query now called customer query. That is what we need. Identify that that's exactly what you needed by looking at your assignment. It'll have an image there. I'm going to close out of this query. We're going to move on. Step number 10, ask us to create a report. Step number 10 says create a report for the customer table. We're going to create a report. Here it is. We're still on the Create tab. Here's our report grouping. It does not ask us to use a wizard. We're going to click the report button. This one's a little tougher, okay? We're going to click the report button. It's going to say that it should include the customer number, customer name, amount paid and balance due, and the sales rep number fields. It doesn't mention anything about address, city, state, or postal code. I'm going to click on address. I'm going to hold down my control, then I'm going to click city, state, and postal code. Now I need to come up here to my report layout tool tabs. I've got the Arrange tab. On my Arrange tab, I need to select these columns. Once I select these columns, I can hit Delete on my keyboard. Now that I've hit Delete on my keyboard, I should have what I need for this report. It says Create a Report Shown. The report should include the customer number. I've got that. The customer name. I've got that. Amount paid, balance due, and the sales rep number. So we're good. Include totals for the amount paid and balance due. So I would like to add some totals in here. Let's see if I have any totals. I have totals in here for the balance due. I'd like a total for the amount paid. If I come up here and I look at my Design tab, I can select the amount paid. I can choose that I want totals for a sum on that, and then I've added my total on that as well. Be sure to change from the column headings to those shown in the figure. Okay, so here my column heading says CU, but my example says customer number. So I need to click in here customer, shift enter will enter this for me. All right. So I need to address that, but guess what? I don't have enough room. There's not enough room, so I've got to get my double-headed arrow and drag that out so I can read it. Okay? Customer number, customer name, amount paid, balance due, and sales rep number. So I've got that. It also has my title. I can click on the title. I need to change that. Customer Financial Report. Then it wants me to save this as customer financial report. Okay, I can do file and save as, oops, no, customer financial report. When I go to close out of it, save changes, yes. Report name, customer financial report, and okay. If I failed to do that, I could right click on it over here and rename it. All right, so now you have that. That's step number 10. Double check yourself, make sure I didn't miss anything. Remember, this video is just a tool to help you with some things if you were having trouble understanding some of the steps within the module. Step number 11 says, if requested to do so by your instructor, change the address of Pat Jones. Most instructors are not going to request that. You do what your instructor asks you to. Step number 12 says to submit the revised database in the format specified by your instructor. Let me make sure you guys understand this. Everything that's in this database here, this is all one database, all of it gets saved together. So you don't have to save customer query separate. You don't have to save your report separate. Everything is saved in this database. When I close out of this database, I didn't even have to save it. It saves everything in there automatically. So when I double click it and reopen it again, it's all going to be in there. And when you attach it and send it in to your instructor, they will get 2 tables, 1 query, and 1 report. That's the end of this video. I hope it was helpful to you. Good luck. Go ahead and submit your file.